This move, the English opening, aims to control the center from the flank and offers a flexible transposition into various common openings, allowing white to adapt based on black's response. Black mirrors white's pawn on circa 5, aiming to control the d4 square and prepare for an asymmetrical pawn structure, a hallmark of many English opening variations. This move initiates the English opening, a flexible system where white aims for central control with a fianchettoed bishop or a more pawn-centric setup, often leading to complex strategic battles. This move enters the open Sicilian, a complex and dynamic opening where black immediately contests the center and aims for counterplay. This move, 3, nc3, reinforces the central pawn and prepares to develop the queen's bishop, aiming for a solid King's Indian attack or a standard English opening setup, while keeping options open against black's symmetrical response. This move establishes a solid pawn center and prepares to contest central space, entering the open Sicilian defense. This move immediately challenges black's central control, aiming to open lines for white's pieces and potentially create an isolated pawn for black after a recapture, leading to dynamic and tactical play. This pawn capture is the standard and most popular continuation in the open Sicilian defense, immediately challenging white's central pawn and preparing to develop pieces harmoniously. This move recaptures the central pawn, establishing white's knight on an active central square and opening up options for further development and control of key squares. This move prepares to develop the kingside bishop and queen, aiming to challenge white's central pawn advantage and control key squares like d5. This move prepares to fianchetto the king's bishop, aiming to control the long diagonal and potentially castle kingside, reinforcing white's central pawn structure in the open Sicilian. This move immediately challenges white's central pawn structure by attacking the d4 pawn, forcing white to address this threat and influencing the subsequent development of pieces. This move retreats the knight to a safer square, simultaneously defending the c4 pawn and preparing to recapture on d4 if black plays qxd4, maintaining central control. This move repositions the knight to a more active central square, aiming to control key squares and potentially prepare for the development of the queenside pieces. This move aggressively stakes a claim in the center, aiming to restrict black's queen and potentially prepare for further pawn advances or piece development. This move develops the bishop to an active square, directly attacking the queen and aiming to disrupt white's pawn center and potentially create tactical opportunities by forcing the queen to move. This move prepares to castle kingside, supports the d4 pawn which may become a target, and opens a diagonal for the queen to potentially participate in the center or queenside play. This move, 9, a5, fights for central space control and aims to prevent white's b4 pawn push, thereby restricting black's queenside development. This move develops the bishop to an active square, preparing to castle and adding pressure to black's queen and the b7 pawn. This move connects the rooks and prepares to contest the d-file, a common strategic goal in this open Sicilian variation. This move solidifies the e4 pawn, aiming to support a further pawn push to e5 and gain central space, while also preparing to develop the kingside bishop to d3 or e2. Castling kingside tucks the king away safely and connects the rooks, a standard positional goal in this symmetrical English opening structure. This move repositions the knight to a more central square, preparing to contest the d4 pawn and potentially support a d5 break, while also keeping an eye on the queenside. This move, 12, ca6, cleverly repositions the queen to a more active square, targeting white's d4 knight and preparing to contest the crucial c6 diagonal, aiming to disrupt white's central control. This move prepares to challenge black's queen and potentially create weaknesses on the queenside by exploiting the vulnerable b6 square. This move decisively challenges white's central pawn structure, aiming to liberate black's position and create active piece play by opening the d-file. This move aggressively targets black's queen and rook with a knight fork, forcing black to address the immediate tactical threat and potentially disrupt their development. This move repositions the queen to a more active square, reinforcing the central tension and preparing for further pawn advances or piece development, while also avoiding the immediate threat of the nc7 knight. This move is a sacrifice of material, trading a knight for a rook, intending to exploit the weakened position of black's king and gain an initiative. Black recaptures the pawn, immediately challenging white's rook and opening lines for their own pieces while creating a more complex pawn structure. This move recaptures the pawn, opening the f-file for potential piece activity and challenging black's central control after the pawn sacrifice. This move recaptures the pawn with a knight, immediately attacking white's queen and rook, aiming to regain material equality and disrupt white's coordination. This move activates the rook to control the vital d-file, aiming to pressure black's weakened kingside and support potential pawn advances. Black's queen repositions to c6, aiming to recapture the sacrificed knight on a8 and exploit the tempo gained by white's misplaced knight on a8. This move develops the bishop to a strong attacking diagonal, supporting the knight on c7 and preparing for potential kingside expansion or pressure on black's queenside. Black sacrifices the bishop on c4 to disrupt white's pawn structure and gain counterplay by forcing white to recapture with the rook, opening the d-file for black's queen. This move relocates the bishop to a more active diagonal, targeting black's underdeveloped kingside and preparing to contest control of the central squares. This move is a tactical sacrifice to disrupt white's central pawn structure and remove an active attacker, though it may also lead to an isolated d-pawn for black. This pawn recapture on c3 is necessary to maintain material equality and avoid black consolidating their advantage by maintaining the piece sacrificed. This move, f5, seeks to counterattack in the center and challenge white's space advantage, aiming to free black's position and activate pieces. This move, castling kingside, is crucial for king safety and connects the rooks after a period of pawn tension and tactical skirmishes in the center. This move aims to redeploy the knight to a more active square and support the d-pawn's advance, potentially opening lines for white's rooks. This knight move repositions the knight to a more active square, eyeing the weak pawn on e4 and preparing to support the d-pawn's advance or join an attack on the kingside. This move, 22, e5, is a vital pawn thrust that challenges white's imposing knight on b6 and seeks to open lines for black's pieces, particularly the queen and rook. This move sacrifices the knight for two pawns and disrupts white's pawn structure, creating dynamic imbalances but also potentially leaving black's king vulnerable to attack. Black recaptures the rook, centralizing the piece on an open file and activating a previously passive unit. This move liberates the queen's bishop and centralizes white's most active pieces, preparing to exploit the weakened d-file and black's exposed king. This check forces white to defend the king, disrupting their coordinated piece play and offering black a valuable tempo to continue developing their counterattack. This move reactivates the bishop from its previous position, aiming to control the important c5 square and to contest the initiative after black's forcing queen. Check. Preparing to defend the d4 pawn and continue with king safety.